Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and to the Drac Von Stollor collection. This story is called The Haunted Bridge. In the heart of the town, where secrets and whispers took refuge in the darkness, a tale of forbidden love and haunting tragedy unfolded, casting an ominous shadow over the land. The town of Willowbrook held an air of unease, as the story of Tom Barlow and Virginia Thompson's ill-fated love affair spread like wildfire through hushed conversations and fearful glances. Tom and Virginia, two souls bound by a love too intense to be confined by societal norms, embarked on secret rendezvous that set the stage for their haunting demise. The old mill bridge, a decrepit and condemned relic of the past, became their sanctuary, a place where they could steal moments away from prying eyes, their hearts beating in sync with the gentle rhythm of the night. Their love, fueled by the thrill of secrecy, found its canvas beneath the starlit sky on that creaky bridge. The night air was pregnant with possibility, and the symphony of crickets and rustling leaves seemed to serenade their every stolen kiss. But beneath the veneer of passion lay an undercurrent of danger, as the bridge itself bore the weight of impending doom, a silent observer to the forbidden tryst. As they walked hand in hand, oblivious to the world outside their bubble of affection, the echoes of their laughter and whispered promises mingled with the wind. Tom's playful challenge led them onto the bridge, a gesture of youthful defiance against a sign that warned against traversing its rickety planks. Virginia's laughter, a sweet melody that danced upon the breeze, masked a lurking trepidation with her heart. But fate, a cruel puppeteer, had other plans. Old Walt Williams, the town's decrepit drunkard, emerged from the shadows of the night, his car careening down the road with reckless abandon. In a split second, the world unravelled. Tom's valiant effort to shield his love from the oncoming disaster ended his life abruptly. Virginia, her survival instinct kicking in, leapt from the bridge into the abyss below, her desperate hope for safety crashing against the cold, unforgiving earth. The echoes of their laughter, once a harmonious symphony of love, were silenced by the screeching tyres and the agonizing impact. The night held its breath, as if nature itself mourned the tragic end to love that had dared to defy the world. Old Walt Williams, consumed by the haze of alcohol and lack of consciousness, continued his journey into the night, ignorant of the destruction he had left in his wake. Tom and Virginia, their lifeless bodies bidden beneath the cloak of darkness, would not be discovered until days later, two souls robbed of a chance to declare their love to the world. News of their demise spread like wildfire, a tale steeped in mystery and tragedy. Tom and Virginia's spouses were left bewildered, grappling with the haunting question of why the two had met at the old mill bridge that fateful night. Their grief was tingled with suspicion, a knowing doubt that grew with every unanswered question. As the weeks turned into months, the town of Willowbrook found itself held captive by the ghostly tendrils of the past. Legends began to emerge, whispers of spectres and apparitions haunting the old mill bridge. The once avoided landmark became a place of terror, shrouded in a chilling aura that sent shivers down the spines of those brave enough, or foolish enough, to venture near. The stories were a mosaic of horror, each more terrifying than the last. Witnesses claiming to have seen a woman in a flowing white gown, her presence a haunting echo of Virginia's tragic fall. Others spoke of a disembodied head that floated eerily across the bridge, a macabre reminder of the violence that had unfolded. And then there were those who claimed to have seen a spectral couple, Virginia in white, Tom in black, his head forever lost, walking hand in hand as if their love had transcended even death itself. The bravest souls, fueled by curiosity or reckless defiance, dared to visit the old mill bridge at the stroke of midnight, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The air grew thick with tension as they crossed the threshold of the bridge, the creaking planks echoing the footsteps of the living and the restless dead alike. Some returned from their encounters pale and shaken, The tales of ghostly apparitions enough to make even the skeptics pause. Others never returned at all. Their fates forever entwined with the legends they sought to uncover. The town's own fear acted as a potent barrier, discouraging most from seeking out the spirits that were said to roam the bridge. And so, the Old Mill Bridge stood as a relic of the past, a scar upon the land that bore witness to a love story that defied convention and a tragedy that resonated through time. The whispers of Tom and Virginia's love affair became intertwined with the chilling tales of the bridge's haunting, creating a tapestry of dread with longing that enveloped the town of Willowbrook. As nights turned into years, the town's memory of Tom and Virginia faded, their names becoming synonymous with the legends that had sprung forth from their untimely demise. The Old Mill Bridge, once a quiet and forgotten landmark, became a nexus of fear and embodiment of the inexplicable forces that dwell at the fringes of human understanding. And so, the haunting tale of Willowbrook and the Old Mill Bridge endured, a story of love that defied the living and a presence that defied the dead. The echoes of laughter and passion that had once graced its planks were replaced by the eerie whispers of a love that had been robbed of its conclusion, a love that lingered on in the realm between the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown. Yet, as the years rolled on, a group of intrepid individuals would emerge from the shadows, drawn by the allure of the bridge's enigmatic history. Paranormal investigators, driven by a thirst for truth and surpass their fear, decide to delve into the mysteries that surrounded the Old Mill Bridge. Armed with equipment to communicate with the other side, they aimed to bridge the gap between the living and the departed, to unlock the secrets that lay dormant within the realm of the supernatural. Their preparations were meticulous, their hearts a blend of excitement and trepidation. The investigators arrived at the bridge well before the midnight hour, setting up their devices and cameras, ready to capture any trace of the ethereal presence that was said to haunt the site. The air was thick with anticipation, a tension that matched the charged atmosphere of the legendary location. As the clock struck midnight, the investigators began their efforts. Voices filled the air, electronic devices crackling with energy as they attempted to pierce the veil between the worlds. Questions were posed into the ether, their words echoing through the darkness like ripples across a pond. Tom, Virginia, are you here? The responses were faint at first, mere whispers that seemed to hang on the edge of audibility. Static danced across their recording devices, the sounds of the night intermingling with spectral responses that they sought. Yes, a voice emerged, soft and almost hesitant, as if the very act of communication defied the natural order. The investigators' hearts raced as they pressed forward, asking more questions, attempting to piece together the puzzle of Tom and Virginia's tragedy. "Why were you on the bridge that night?" one investigator inquired, her voice slightly trembling. The answers were fragmented, the voice of the past reveling glimpses of their forbidden love. Love, night, stars. The responses came in disjointed phrases, as if the emotions that had once burned brightly were now fading embers struggling to be rekindled. With each attempt to communicate, the veil between the worlds seemed to thin, the bridge itself a conduit for the past, to spill into the present. Eerie sensations of being watched, of a presence lingering just beyond the edge of sight, sent shivers down the investigators' spines. Shadows danced on the corners of their vision, teasing the boundaries of reality. But as the hours wore on, the investigators sensed growing frustration from the spirits they sought to communicate with. Their responses grew more distorted, their voices carrying a weight of a longing and sorrow that bordered on desperation. The atmosphere around the bridge seemed to thicken, an almost palpable tension that was a testament to the presence of forces beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the bridge, extinguishing their recording devices and plunging them into darkness. Panic surged through the investigators, their sense of control slipping away as a chilling whisper seemed to echo around them. "Leave." The word reverberated, accompanied by an undeniable sense of urgency. Terrified, the investigators packed up their equipment and retreated from the old mill bridge, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and awe. As they looked back at the enigmatic structure one last time, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had come face to face with the remnants of love that had transcended even death. In the aftermath of their encounter, the investigators sifted through their recordings, their photographs, their own memories, attempting to piece together the puzzle of the night's events. The voices of Tom and Virginia, the whispers of the past, haunted their thoughts, their longing for closure, a mirror of the spirits that they had encountered. The town of Willowbrook continued to be shrouded in the chilling aura of its haunted bridge. The tale of Tom and Virginia's forbidden love had taken on new dimensions, interwoven with the attempts of the living to communicate with the departed. The old mill bridge remained a realm of uncertainty, a space where the past and the present collided in ways that defied explanation. And so, the story of the old mill bridge endured, a haunting symphony of love, tragedy, the unquenchable thirst for answers. The paranormal investigators had touched the fringes of the unknown, their encounter leaving them forever marked by the lingering presence of Tom and Virginia. The bridge, a silent sentinel of the past, stood as a reminder that some secrets were meant to remain veiled, that the boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead were both fragile and eternal. The end. Thank you for listening to this Drac Von Stollor story, and many blessings. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and to the Drac Von Stollor collection. This story is called Bride and Seek, Urban Legend. It was June, and what a perfect month for a wedding. Dan and Melissa had been dating for several years, and Dan finally popped the question she'd been anticipating for over a year. She thought that day would never come, but it finally did. And when Dan asked her to marry him, she said, "Yes, yes," and they shared a long kiss. Melissa said with excitement, "Dan, I know the perfect place to have the wedding." Dan asked, "Where?" "My grandmother's farm," replied Melissa. "Sounds good to me," replies Dan. The following week the wedding was planned. The weather was beautiful. After the wedding was over and most of the guests left, Dan decided to play a game called hide and seek. There were only about 10 of their friends left, and said they would like to play. Dan, being the groom and the one that asked everyone to play, said he would be it and everyone else would hide. The game went on for over an hour, and when one of the guests asked where his bride was, Dan said she probably went inside the house for a nap. Everyone's left, and Dan went inside Melissa's grandmother's house to check on his bride. He asked her grandmother where she might be, but Melissa's grandmother had just gotten up from a nap herself, so if she came in, she wouldn't have noticed. Dan said to her, "I'll check the other bedrooms. I'm sure she's in one of those rooms." Dan checked all the bedrooms. No sign of his bride anywhere. "Maybe she's in the barn." Dan checked the barn, the rest of the property, but still, no sign of his bride. Dan went back inside the house and told Melissa's grandmother, "If she doesn't show up by morning, then I will file a missing persons report." Morning came, and Dan called everyone that attended the wedding, and his bride's grandmother and everyone had no knowledge of her whereabouts, so Dan called the police and filed a missing persons report on his bride. A year had passed. Melissa's grandmother was cleaning around in the attic and said, "It smells like death in here." The grandmother smelled around the attic, but the most potent smell seemed to be coming from the trunk, so she carefully opened the trunk and screamed to the top of her lungs. And there she was, the bride, with maggots in her eye sockets, rats chewing on her rotting flesh. When they were playing hide and seek, the bride wanted to be the hardest one to find, and she made her way upstairs to the attic. Somehow she got in the trunk. The lid fell on her head, knocking her unconscious, and the chest locked itself. The bride suffocated, and no one ever checked in the attic to see if the bride was hiding there. Not even the groom checked to see. After about a month trying to live through the tragedy of losing her granddaughter, she decided to sell the farm. Amid the chaos of their crumbling world, the story of Dan and Melissa's wedding stood as a stark contrast, a glimmer of hope and happiness that had once existed. It was a memory that seemed to belong to a different reality, a time before the apocalypse and the subsequent disasters had struck. The memory of that beautiful June day, when they had exchanged vows under the open sky on Melissa's grandmother's farm, now just felt like a distant dream. Dan's heartache had been unbearable as the days turned into weeks and then months, with no trace of his bride to be found. The investigation had yielded no leads, and the mystery surrounding her disappearance remained unsolved. The wedding that had brought so much joy now felt like a haunting reminder of his loss. Melissa's grandmother, burdened by the weight of her granddaughter's absence, had tried to carry on the best she could. The farm, once a place of cherished memories, now felt tainted by tragedy. The smell of death that had emanated from the attic lingered in her mind, a constant reminder of the horror that had unfolded under her roof. Her decision to sell the farm wasn't just a practical one. It was an attempt to escape the painful memories that had become woven in every corner of the property. As the farm went up for sale, a bittersweet realization settled in. The place that had once held so much love and promise for Melissa and Dan was now marked by sorrow and loss. The memories of their wedding day, though still vivid, were tingled with an ache of what could have been. The laughter and joy had echoed through the farm's fields and halls, now seemed like distant echoes of happier times. News of the sale spread through the community, carrying with it a sense of finality. Friends, family, and even those who had attended the wedding returned to bid their farewells to the place that had played host to both celebration and tragedy. They stood in the open fields, remembering the smiles and laughter that had once filled the air, while also feeling the weight of the emptiness that now lingered. Amidst the goodbyes, there was a sense of closure, as if selling the farm was a step forward. It was moving forward from darkness that had befallen them. Melissa's grandmother, though heartbroken, found solace in the thought that a new family might come to make their own memories on the land, creating a different story that would replace the pain with happiness. But even as the farm changed hand, the memory of Melissa's fate remained etched in the minds of those who had known her. The tragic tale of the bride who had hidden too well, who had met her end in the confines of the attic, would be spoken of in hushed whispers. The farm's new owners, unaware of the sorrow that had once gripped the place, would soon discover its history in unexpected ways. The memory of Dan and Melissa's wedding served as a poignant reminder of the power of love, the fragility of life, and the importance of cherishing every moment you ever have. The end. Thank you for listening to this tale from Drac Von Stollor, the urban legend. Many blessings. Hello everyone, Wysteria here. Let's get into another Drac Von Stollor classic. This is called Your Cheating Heart. Bill realised that he didn't love his new bride, Susan, anymore. When the honeymoon was over about a year, Bill ran an insurance business that was doing well and always stayed longer hours than needed, and his new bride was alone in a big empty house that should have been full of love. Susan tried her best to get Bill to notice her more, but it was no use. Bill started sleeping on the couch, sometimes would come home later than any normal husband would that loved his wife. One night, Susan got out of bed and went downstairs to the living room where Bill was sleeping. She turned on the light, and as she was standing with both hands on her hips, she noticed something red on his collar. She bent over and grabbed the neck of his collar and smelled it and said, "Just what I thought." She shook him to wake him up, but he was too drunk. That it would take more than just a few shakes to wake him up. She said, "I know just the thing to wake this cheating man up." Susan had had all she could take from his coldness, and took the beer bottle out of his hand and broke it over his head. Bill jumped off the couch. "Why did you do that?" "Are you cheating on me?" asked Susan. Bill replied, "What in the hell are you talking about?" "Don't pretend you're not," explained his heartbroken wife. "If you wanted to know the truth, I was never really in love with you. I didn't want to hurt your feelings, so I married you anyway. Are you satisfied?" explained Bill. Instead of Susan throwing a big fit,
She decided to make him pay a heavy price for breaking her heart and cheating on her. Susan acted like it was no big deal with what he said or what he'd done to her. She said in a calm voice, even though she didn't mean it, "It's okay, darling. I love you anyway." Bill replied, "Are you crazy? If someone did that, what I've just done to you, I'd want them dead." "I can't help it. I'm crazy in love with you," replied Susan. She asked Bill, "Would you like another beer?" Bill said, "You bet." Susan went and got a cheating husband beer out of the refrigerator, but instead of rushing back to him with the beer in hand, she decided to pour a sleeping powder in his beer and plan the hell that would be brought upon him when he awoke from his deep sleep. Susan handed him his beer, and he gulped it down. Within minutes, he was out like a light. As he lay there sound asleep, she pulled down his pants, removed his testicles, and closed the cuts with a bandage. So when he awoke from his deep sleep and got up, went into the kitchen to see what his wife was cooking, he would get a shock. He came up behind her and said, "What are you cooking? That smells so good." "Oh, it's something special in hopes we can forget about how much you hurt me and try to move forward so this will never happen again," said his wife, but she was holding back tears. "Are you sure you're not mad at me?" replied her husband. "No, I'm not upset. Why, don't you sit down and, while I finish cooking this meal for you, sit at the table. I'll bring it out as soon as it's ready," she replied, as her anger was building. "Okay. I want a beer with this wonderful meal." "No problem, darling," she said as she was stirring the meal in a skillet in anger. As her husband was sitting at the kitchen table, he started to sober up. The effects of the sleeping medication wore off. Moments later, he was feeling a lot of discomfort in his groin area. And, by the time he was going to tell her about it, she placed the meal and the beer in front of him. As he was cutting into the round piece of food, he looked a little closer and said, "Honey, this piece of meat has hair all over it." She started laughing hysterically and he said, "I'm starting to feel nauseated." "Oh, quit being a big baby and dig in. I know you're going to like it. You helped me put this wonderful meal together." "What do you mean, I helped you put this meal together?" asked her husband. "Why don't you check inside your pants?" said his wife. He immediately got up from the kitchen table, pulled his pants down and got the shock of his life. There was blood all over both legs. Why did you have to do that?" His wife screamed out, "Because you betrayed me, and the pain was so great." Then he removed the bandage and fainted from the horrible sight between his legs. After the cheating husband lay on the floor passed out, she took a butcher's knife out of the kitchen drawer, stabbed him in the chest, cut out his heart from this chest, and placed it in a skillet, and fried it. Then she put the cooked heart on a plate and cut a piece off and ate it and washed it down with a glass of wine. A lesson to be learned if you cheat. You may end up as a tasty meal on someone's plate, or you just might lose your nuts. The end. Yeah, I've heard some cheating stories, but that's a good old classic right there. Probably, when you find out they're cheating on you, it's best not to be angry or anything. Revenge is very sweet, and karma is the best medicine. Trust me. Many blessings.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and to the Drac Von Stollor collection. This one is called 666. Evil was about to fall upon the Delaney estate. that Mike and Samantha could never have imagined. It was Halloween, and Samantha's contractions were unbearable, so her husband rushed his pregnant wife to the hospital to deliver their new bundle of joy. Mike told the doctor and nurse to take great care of his wife. The doctor and nurse reassured Mike they would take excellent care of her and not to worry. Mike waited patiently in the waiting room as the doctor and nurse delivered their beautiful baby. After a few hours, the baby finally arrived, and the doctor entered the waiting room and told Mike to come in the place to see his new baby. Mike entered, and his wife was all smiles and said, "Honey, it's a boy. I think he looks like a Johnny. What do you think?" asked his wife. "Johnny sounds fine to me," replied Mike. Mike was so excited and held his baby boy in his arms. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he said, "Darling, I think he likes me." Mike stayed the night in his wife's room with their new baby, but as they slept, an unforeseen force came into their place that was about to change their lives forever. When they both woke in the morning. Morning came, and Samantha, her husband and baby left the hospital to their new home. It wasn't until after little Johnny turned 6 years of age that things around the Delaney estate turned deadly. The first time that Johnny had the mark of the beast was June the 6th. It was the 6th month, the 6th day, and Johnny was 6. All the numbers represented 666. Johnny's mother would be his first kill, as a demonic voice told him his mother was cooking in the kitchen and that she must die. Johnny entered the kitchen as she was cooking dinner for the family, while the maid was doing their laundry. Johnny stared at a pan of grease on the stove, as the demonic voice told him his mind could control any object and make it do whatever he willed it to. So the pan of grease fell to the floor, causing his mother to scream out as the hot grease splattered all over her body. Then she lost her balance and accidentally grabbed the butcher's knife by the blade she was using to chop vegetables. The butcher's knife put a big gash in her hand, and as she was lying on the floor bleeding, Johnny just stared at her as she pleaded with him to call for help. Instead, Johnny's evil will kick in once more, and he made the butcher's knife release from her hand and stab her through the heart, killing her instantly. The maidservant dropped the basket of clothes when she heard screaming and rushed in to see what the commotion was all about. When her eyes gazed upon Johnny's mother lying in a pool of blood with a knife in her chest, she screamed and put her arms around little Johnny, unbeknownst to her that he was his own mother's killer. She asked Johnny what happened, and he cried and said, "I don't know." The maidservant phoned the police and Johnny's father. Yes, Johnny's father got in his car all shook up over the death of his beautiful wife and hurried back home to see what the police found out. Johnny's father burst through the front door of his house as a white sheet was placed over his dead wife's body. Johnny rushed over to his father in tears, asking his father what happened to his mummy, even though little Johnny knew all along what happened. After the police questioned the maidservant and Johnny, they were both cleared of any wrongdoing. Samantha's death was ruled an accident. Shortly after Johnny's mother's death, he started having dreams that seemed to be real from an evil force that told him he was the son of the devil and not to fear the word of the devil. The next morning, as the maidservant was through cleaning one of the upstairs rooms, she stood at the top of the stairs, glancing over the top rail. There stood below Johnny, staring at her with blazing red eyes. The maid was in a trance-like state with his red eyes, and she could not move. Then a demonic voice whispered in Johnny's ear and said, "Johnny, tell her to jump on top of the rail, and then jump off. Then tell her to spread her arms apart, because she can fly like a bird." The maid did as Johnny asked, jumped off the rail with her arms spread like an eagle, and fell to her death. And later that evening, Johnny's father arrived home from a business trip, got the shock of his life when he entered the door of his mansion, and there lying on the floor in a pool of blood was his maid, dead. He ran upstairs to ask his son what happened, and Johnny replied, She climbed on top of the rail and said, "Look, Johnny, I can fly." Then she hit the floor in front of me, and I shook her and told her to get up, but she didn't move. "That's okay, Johnny. I think the passing of your mother did her in, and that's why she's no longer with us," explained Johnny's father. Johnny's father started having dreams of Johnny coming in his bedroom while he was asleep, trying to kill him with a knife, but he would wake up before the blade penetrated his chest. One night, while Johnny was sleeping, his father came to check on him before he turned in for the night, and noticed something that looked like numbers between his earlobe, and decided to take a closer look with a flashlight. He couldn't believe what he saw. The numbers 666 were branded on his skin, and decided he should call a priest and see if this is something he should be concerned about. Johnny's father went to bed for the night, and in the morning he phoned the priest to see what his thoughts were on the numbers branded behind his son's ear. The priest replied, "I do believe you should have a lot to be concerned about. Those 3 numbers represent the mark of the beast, and the devil possesses your son. I will come over. I will bless your house, perform an exorcism on your son if needed." "Thank you, Father. I will wait for your arrival," replied Mike. Right as the priest set off to bless Mike's house, Johnny appeared in the back seat of his car and said, "Hey, the priest is going somewhere." The priest swerved off the road and almost hit a tree. Then Johnny said, "I think it's getting hot in here." Johnny started laughing in a demonic voice as the car caught on fire. The priest and his car burned beyond recognition. Johnny's father went upstairs to tell Johnny that the priest was coming over to bless their house. But when he opened his bedroom door, Johnny was playing quietly with his toys. Johnny's father just smiled and shut his door, and went downstairs to wait on the priest, but hours passed and there were no sign of the priest. Mike tried phoning the priest at the church to see if he just forgot, but another priest answered and said, "A charred body in a car burned beyond recognition was found to be that of the priest you were calling." Mike said, "He was on his way to my house to bless it because I found some numbers branded behind my son's ear that he said I should be concerned about." The priest replied, "What were those numbers?" "The numbers were 666. The mark of the beast is what he said they stood for." "Now, don't be upset with what I'm going to tell you, but I think your son caused the priest's death. The demon inside of him was the cause, not your son. Whatever you do, don't tell your son that I am coming over. I will help you rid your son of this demon inside of him," explained the priest. "Okay, I give you my word," replied Mike. They both hanged up their phones, and the priest got in his car and headed to Mike's estate to confront the demon inside of Mike's son. When the priest entered Mike's home, he knew right off there was something evil lurking inside the house, and that he might have a battle on his hands and he couldn't win. He entered with caution, opening his Bible, reading scripture, and joining each room, blessing the rooms with holy water. Then a burst of wind blew open the door as he was reading the scripture. He could barely hear the words he was speaking. Then he noticed Johnny was standing in the entryway of the room with blazing red eyes. Then all of a sudden, the priest flew across the room with great force and hit the wall and fell dead. Mike ran over to the priest to try and revive him, but he was unresponsive. Mike knew then his son had the mark of the beast and would ultimately lose the battle with the devil to get back his son. Being the loving father that he was, he would give it his all, even if it cost him his life. With 2 priests, a wife and a maid dead, he knew in his heart that the devil wants his son's soul at any cost. Mike did his best to stand up against the devil by reading scripture from the blood-stained pages of the dead priest's Bible, but all Mike heard was laughter from the devil. Johnny approached his father as his father was on his knees, pleading with the devil to let his son go. Johnny touched his father's forehead and said, "It's time to die, Daddy." Johnny squeezed his father's head with both hands, shattering his skull, causing sudden death. Then the devil said, "Johnny, it's time to come home where you belong." Then the entrance to the doorway was engulfed in flames. The devil said, "Johnny, Step into the flames and join me in hell. Johnny stepped into the fire, never to be heard or seen from again. The Delaney estate burnt to the ground, along with the hell it once possessed. The end. So that was another story from Drac Von Stollor. And I just want to make something very clear, okay? Though this is a story that states these numbers 666 represent the beast, that's not the true meaning of the numbers at all. A lot of people still think it is the meaning of that. They're just numbers. It's not the actual meaning of that. A lot of people put it down to satanic stuff, but actually most of those people don't actually research properly, I think. And they just presume that, like, because it's on YouTube or because it's on films or because it's in Hollywood, that it's got to be real. It's really not. That's not the mark of the beast, and then not the numbers of the beast either. I actually have a friend, and I only remembered because of the birthmark, and he was born, and on his neck at the back, he literally has 666 is his birthmark, but his goes really strange because it goes, he has like 1 6, and then inside that round bit of that 6 he has another 6, and then inside that one he has another one, and he was born with that. That's his birthmark. It doesn't mean anything bad or negative. It's all just like Hollywood propaganda, let's say. And I just wanted to make that clear. Obviously, this story is for entertainment purposes only, so, you know, take it with a pinch of salt, guys. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.